For. So this is also being broadcast to our live private YouTube page so that we can record it and make awesome things happen. So I would love to start with what you guys feel is challenging about your time management. Where do you feel like you're just not possibly getting every minute out of the day, or oh, Justin, you muted yourself.
I did. The household distractions day to day, work from home comes with a lot of distractions, and I squeeze all the things in I need to do in a day, but I feel like I could have it done a lot sooner if I wasn't so scattered.
Yeah, I think every parent totally understands that. And for those of you that are not parents and that are simply trying to do things like, I don't know, run businesses, change the world, what have you, there are always going to be things that come up that just make it harder, that throw us off our priority game, and that we just can't seem to get as much done as we think we should, or we don't feel like we've gotten done what we think we should. And so, Lucas, I didn't get to do this as I was doing the other tech. If you can forward that email that I sent you with the Franklin Covey stuff in it out to everybody, just make sure that they have it again. I would greatly appreciate that. But we are going to go into some actual tactics. So guys, this is the time to take notes. I've got free tools in there for you. And we're going to talk about some of the psychology around this, because if we've got goals to accomplish and there's never enough hours in the day, you're never going to get there. And you're going to constantly feel like you're in a place of not achieving. So I started using Franklin Covey when I was about 22. I was an executive admin for 4 CEOs. And obviously, there's not a 22-year-old on earth that's organized. And since then, it has completely changed my life. I was diagnosed late in my adult life with ADD. And I didn't know that I had wrapped all of these structures around myself that had helped me accomplish at the level I had, until I understood why I had such a hard time not having these processes in place. So while there are a lot of time management theories out there, this has been far the most successful practice that I've had the opportunity to work with. And they come from Ben Franklin and Stephen R. Covey. And are there any of you that are familiar with Ben Franklin's story? He used to carry a little book with him that had a priority list for everything that he was going to do, from having his morning constitution to what friend he was going to catch up with that day. And it was planned out. And he accomplished more in his lifetime than most people do in 4. I'm not going to say you're going to be Ben Franklin, but I'm going to say let's get you as close as we can. So when we're looking at our goals, you've got to start with your values. And I know that, listen, I am not going to be the person that tells you, you've got to write a life mission statement and all of these things, because some people don't find value in it. But if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, the goals that you set aren't going to have intrinsic value to you. And if they're not in your heart, they're not going to happen out here. And this goes personally and professionally, because this circle is continuous. If you don't believe that you can do it, and your thoughts start to tell you that you can't, and you start to feel depleted, you can't take the action in order to get to the result. But if you get to the result, it changes your beliefs and starts to change the entire structure. we're going to train your brains to hold on to the results and to get excited about them and actually to get addicted to them. And it starts to shift all of these other pieces. So how do you define your values? This really has to be up to you. Right now, I'd like you to take a moment and just grab 3 to 5 values. These are just some things to spark your thought process. But what is it that's valuable to you? What is it that you want people to see when they truly see you? And as we start to understand what our values are, we need to create some clarifying statements. And for those of you that enjoyed the wave that hit the country that was The Secret, which is basically talking about intention and the laws of attraction, there are psychological components of the practices that they have in that documentary, if we want to call it that, that really clearly define how to set your subconscious mind up for achievement. So pick one of your values. And I would like you to write a clarifying statement that is believable, is placed now versus in the future, and that comes with some kind of visualization. So if somebody throw a value out there or a goal.
Going beyond.
Going beyond. Okay, so that's a value of yours.
Yes.
So if we were to put that into a present value statement, you would say, my clients send at least one thank you note a year because they see me going beyond in everything that I do, and I am celebrating the success of that with my wife. So we want to put that into a phrase, and I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to play with it. But use ing words and determine how that value is sensed, how it comes outside of you, or what impact it has on everything else that you're doing. And visualize yourself in the moment of that recognition. Because one of the things that we miss all the time in goal setting is we might put a number on a piece of paper, but it's the recognition of that actually feeds you mentally and emotionally and drives you to the next thing. So I'm going to take a minute and let you get there. Once you've got, and this is something that you should do for all of your values, and if you do get the Franklin Covey kit, the starter kit actually has the worksheets to walk you through this. And I'm going to give me 1 second. I can hear somebody else coming in. Am I still presenting screen sharing? Can you guys see my screen, or are you seeing yourselves?
Good screen.
Thank you. So the next piece is you've got to identify your roles, because none of us is just one thing in the world, right? You're a child, your spouse or partner, your sibling, your friend. If you own your company, you're a CEO, your business development, your client satisfaction. What are those roles that you have to play on a daily basis? And we can just popcorn some of them out. What do you guys see as your roles? This is the part where you talk to me.
Structure.
Structure as a role or as a value?
I need to be the structure in my household and in my familial life.
Okay, so that is head of household or father would be that role, right? The roles that we have should link back to our values. And we want to actually, once you have your roles pulled out, and you'll have this recording, but I want you to go back through this process. And this was something that was incredibly powerful for me when I was about 26. And I had a boyfriend, and he had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. I had a medical spa, a belly dancing agency, skin school, and I was running eWomen Network, of which I had 5 chapters and 350 members. And when I stopped and looked at how I wanted my family to perceive me and clarified how I'm going to show up for them, I realized that all those children saw me do was leave. And I didn't want that to be what they took away from our relationship. So for each role that you play, there are stakeholders, right? If it's the household, you've got your partner, you've got your kid, maybe you've got extra kids, maybe you've got animals, whatever it is. How are you going to show up for them? If they were to tell you what they see in you, what would that be? The value in clarifying your roles is as we start to plan the goals, and again, this will come back to time management, I promise. We want to set goals that are attached to our values or the role that we play. And we're going to take those and boil them down to what needs to happen for each and every role on a weekly basis. One of the podcasts that we did with an incredible therapist, her name is Natalie, I can't pronounce the last part, but she was saying that, most families come in and they don't know what they want their family to look like. There's no family plan. They just know that they want to do it better than their parents did, right? Well, that's not exactly a KPI or a metric. You need to know where you're going. And when you do that, you can set smaller goals that will align you to what that bigger vision is. So do you mind if we stick with your example, Justin, of being the structure in your household? I can't see you, so I'm hoping you're saying yes.
Yes, I was giving thumbs up.
Yeah, if you guys can talk back to me, like it's going to help me here because I really can't see you. So if you were the structure in your home, what would a specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and either trackable or time-sensitive goal be? In your role as Papa Bear, freshly minted Papa Bear.
I think consistent. I'm stumped. I'm genuinely stumped as to how to answer this question.
How about I lovingly create the consistency that my family needs through maintaining work-life balance, spending at least 20% of my time in play with my children, ensuring that the communication between my partner and I is stable and visited on a monthly basis.
Oh, more often than that.
Whatever you need to, if we're talking State of the Union conversation here, that's not, Don't let that be a daily thing. And we are celebrating our beautiful son's first birthday, knowing that we've created a system that works for us. So that's some pretty heady stuff. One of the things that I kind of want you to notice is that I put that into an active present tense too, right? And there's a visualization around it. Take one of your roles or your values, and I need everybody to write down just one goal that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. And if you need help, we can workshop it out. The first person that has something, please feel free to speak up. All right, I'm gonna start calling on people.
Can we workshop one out for me?
Yeah, I would love to. Hit us up.
Let's do it. So something for me would be I have a tendency to, like, here it's easy because I'm not face to face, but I have a lot of guards up,
Mhm.
where I like there's no way to not sound like an arrogant jerk, but it's almost like you have to earn my friendship through all these walls to find out who's that real guy way down deep in there. Because most people you just come across and it's very cordial, casual, and they're gone, and you don't ever really get to the deep essence of them. So it's irrelevant, but it's also like heavy to constantly bear that burden. So I would like to work on. It's not a matter of being authentic. That's a little oversimplification because I don't consider myself fake by any means. But showing up and kind of letting people decide what they're going to decide
So
without my ego input.
being vulnerable.
Right. Yeah.
So your goal is really around being a friend, right? And
Mm-hmm.
having friends. How many friends do you want to have that you would consider like your top confidants?
I only have like 4 now, and that's like a lot.
Okay. So you want to maintain the relationship with the 4 people that are closest to you and invest in it. You want to learn how to show up more vulnerably in relationships that are not quite as close.
Yeah.
And open yourself up to new people and experiences that may not feel like the same 4 that are closest to you, right?
Yeah.
So if we were to put this into some specificity, it could sound something like, I joyfully plan one day a month with my 4 most important people where I can be completely present with them while actively engaging in not only personal development, but new experiences that will increase my vulnerability. As a result, on January 15th, 2022, I will have 10 people that I have established relationships with that I could call at any time, and they would pick up the phone no matter what. And then we're going to have to put some metrics around it even further. Right? And pick what's good for you. But once we have that bigger vision, we want to make sure that we chunk it down into steps and add a timeline. Again, if you do the starter kit from Franklin Covey, it's all in there for you. It's not a very complex system, so there's some things that we can do to get around it, but the chunking it down is really what's critical. Because if the goal is to, and this is a financial goal because it's just easier to look at, if the goal is to get to $100,000 or $1 million in sales, I know that I've got to hit certain criteria along the way, but I also need to do things like create stages to be on, be actively networking, be winning awards and figuring out how to do that. But if we do this, there's a couple of things that you really want to avoid in this process. The first one is trying to put them in order. Your brain is not going to put this in order. It is not how your brain works. Let it free flow, the steps that you want to take and the things that you want to accomplish and by when. You can always go back and put the deadline to it later, right? Mind mapping is also an incredibly successful way to do that. Are you familiar with, can I get a yes from all of us that are familiar with mind mapping?
Yes.
No? Yes? Okay. So I'm actually going to have my wonderful assistant, Maria, help me here. And I'm going to give you an example. Are you able to see this on your screen? No. Okay, but guys, can I ask a question? Because she's not seeing the screen share on her screen. Are you seeing something that says time management?
None of us.
No.
Oh, when I asked you earlier, that's what I was asking about.
And he said no screen.
Good grief. Okay, well, we'll go back for that part. But by the way, guys, this is Maria.
Hey, guys.
She's from Safety Chicks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hope that you can see this whiteboard behind me. And I'm going to put myself into full screen. So, Maria, if you could just try and make sure that they can see
Okay.
what I'm about to do over here.
Gotta take myself out of it then. Okay.
Slide to the left. All right.
Here we go.
So in mind mapping, organically, you're going to start with a goal, right? So let's call that goal $100 million. Okay? So you know that part of that is going to be sales. Part of that's going to be marketing. Part of that's going to be maybe tools, strategic partners. Right. Oh, if I'm going to get strategic partners, I bet you that I'm going to have to do some networking. Right. And if I'm going to do some networking, I'm going to want to join maybe 2 groups. And then I need to block out 5 hours a week for follow-up. And then I'm going to need to make sure that my CRM is ready for it and have a couple of flows there. Right? So this is how your mind organically processes through goals. Expecting it to go in any kind of straight line is never going to get you there. There are tools online that you can use to do this. There's also great big legal pads that you can use. And what this does is it gives you a chance to look at all of the little things that have to go into each one of the major components of what's going to get you to that goal. And that's where we start to be able to chunk things down really, really effectively. So does this make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. I am going to take this back and actually get you guys on a screen because that was stupid. My apologies, as we are still learning our new tech. There we go. All right, now can you see it?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, so by the way, we were going through SMART goals. Here are your SMART goal curriculum, or the pieces that you need to be shooting for. And now how we go back through the planning and how it's going to appear when you put it into a list formation. The goal that we need to be focusing on is called living above the line. And I've got a lot of clients that will print this out and post it in their area, because the interruptions, some callers and junk, the meetings, the busy work, the stuff that makes us feel like we're doing stuff doesn't always have value. The things that have true urgency and the planning and making it better, those are the things that are important. And that includes true recreation and relaxation. It's not urgent, but it's absolutely important. And I'm sure that you've all worked with somebody that you see fall down into category 3 all the time, right? You've got to decide what's important to you and what's going to get you to your goal. And when you start noticing that some of these things are going to pull you down, this system is what's going to pull you back up to above the line. So, if you're not taking care of yourself, none of this is going to work. And right now, it feels like I've just put a ton of extra work on your plate. But I'm going to show you how it's going to get easier.
Oh, hello there. Brett McGayer from theartofmanliness.com. Caught me in the middle of an experiment. Do you guys ever feel like you're busy all day, you're answering email, you feel busy, but at the end of the day, you feel like you didn't accomplish anything? Well, there's a reason why you feel like that, and I'm going to do a little object lesson or experiment to show you why that is. We're going to say that this jar represents your life or your calendar or your schedule. And the way most people go about their life is they fill it up first with stuff that's not very important. And that's going to be represented by this water. So this is like surfing the internet, checking out Reddit, checking out BuzzFeed. Don't do that anymore. Quit checking BuzzFeed. Stuff that adds really no value to your life. And then what they do is they do stuff that's a little bit more important, that has some value, but really not much. And that's represented by this sand. So this is, answering some work email that really could have been answered, done over the phone in 5 minutes, but it's turned into 50 different emails. This is like when you're doing research on the internet, but then you somehow end up back at those time-wasting sites. So that's the sand. And then we start doing stuff that's, a little bit more important, but not all that important. That's represented by this gravel. So, this could be probably a lot of busy work that a lot of people do. All right. So it's, stuff that has some value, but not all that much. And then you realize, man, I haven't done anything. I've been really busy, but I haven't gotten any work done. I got to focus on those really important things. So you try to cram those big rocks in. Those big rocks represent the most important things in your life. It could be things like family, it could be your health, your spirituality. It could also be tasks in work or in class that will bring you closer to your goal. So you try to cram that into your calendar or your schedule. You quickly realize there's no room in your calendar because you filled it up with all this other stuff that's not really important. You don't have room for the important stuff. But here's the catch. With just a bit of rearrangement and some prioritization, you would have been able to fit all of the most important tasks, your big rocks, and all of this into your calendar and schedule. Don't believe me? I'll show you. All right, so we got a new schedule. This time, instead of filling up our schedule, metaphorical schedule, with the dumb stuff first, we're gonna put the most important things and put those in first. So we're gonna put up the big rocks in. Now this is gonna be different for every person, what those big rocks are. If you wanna be a writer, for example, you should set aside time to write. That'd be a big rock. If you're a dad, setting aside time for family time would be a big rock. Working out, exercising would be a big rock. And you would treat these things basically like a doctor's appointment on your calendar. Like you would block it off, and if someone wants to do something during that time, you tell them, sorry, or I already got something going on, even if that is working out. Just whatever is really important, you want to make sure that you get done. You schedule that first. Then after that, you can start putting in some of those, filling in the gaps with the stuff that's not really important, but just a little bit important. Things like work emails. There you go. And of course, you'll need to rearrange things sometimes. So you did some of the stuff that's not too important, but still needs to be done. But you still have room. You still have time for some of that fun stuff that's just mindless. So go ahead, after you've done your big rocks, done the stuff that's sort of important, you can do some bit of mindless web surfing. Put some more in there. Still got plenty of room. Let it sift through. Okay. And here's the thing. There's still room for more. I mean, we could probably put more sand in here. Some more fun stuff. That is really heavy. We got the water. This is just like stuff, I don't even know what. It's like not important at all. All right, so as you can see, we're able to fit in a lot more, including the big rocks. And the key was we had to put the big rocks in first. So my challenge to you this week is, as you sit down with your calendar and plan out your week, and if you're not planning, I definitely recommend you start doing that. Find out what your big rocks are. What are the most important things that you need to be doing? Again, if you want to be a writer, a big rock would be setting aside time for writing. If you want to be a musician, setting aside time for deliberate practice on whatever instrument it is that you're doing would be a big rock.
So I'm going to lovingly cut him off because we know exactly where he's going here. And here's where we start to pick up speed. Once you have your goals set and chunked down into smaller pieces, you can take a look at where you need to be for the year. And some people like to determine what the big rocks are for the month. So if I'm looking at my family goals and I can see, let's see, that I wanted to have 2 vacations by X dates, which means that I needed to plan a budget, get it into the checking account. Oh, this is my week to open the checking account or the savings account that's specific for me to squirrel money away in that particular fund. I move that into what's got to happen. And the magic of the Franklin Covey is really kind of this little slip right here. And it walks you through identifying your roles and putting your big rocks for the week out there. Because now when all of those things come up, you know that if at least I can get this taken care of this week, I'm going to be moving forward on the big things in life. Once you get into the role with this is going to take you maybe 10 minutes, max, maybe 5 minutes, considering I didn't fill the whole thing up. And at the top of it, it says, sharpen your saw. And so if we look back at this quote and we exchange the word axe for saw, he's saying that if you take care of yourself first, you're going to get through everything else so much faster. So it's going to ask you, what are you going to do for yourself this week? Physically, socially, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Because if those things become out of alignment, you're not going to be good at any of the other things that you are doing. So as we get into our day, there are going to be a million little things that can take priority. And you've got a moment at the beginning of every day that you need to create, if it's not there for you already, to look at what is on your plate, what your big rocks are, and just start a free-form list of what's got to get done today. Don't make it go in order. Your brain is not going to work that way. What we're about to do is train you to be a dopamine and serotonin fiend, because that blast of chemicals that you get when you check something off a list becomes addictive to the brain. And what will start to happen is that your subconscious mind will start to work towards the tasks and goals that you have on hand without any effort on your part. Those moments when you wake up in the middle of the night with a solution to something that has been bothering you, or even just making sure that you've got small wins every day that start to change your beliefs because you're seeing the results. This is where we start to switch the way that your brain works. And once you've got everything listed, you're going to head back to the top and you're going to prioritize them. And this is where you have to be really honest with yourself. Your A's must be done today, or there are going to be consequences, flat out. B's could get done tomorrow if they needed to. C's, oh my God, if I could get it done this week, fantastic, right? You can't have more than 8 A's. Not everything has to be done today. Once you've gotten everything into a category, you're going to go back to the top of that page and you're going to put them into order. A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, however many there are. And then you go back to the B's and you put them in order. And then you go to your C's. And Justin, here's what this does. When you're in the middle of A7 and your kid rolls by in their little walker on fire, you can stop and put the baby out and come back and know where you were. You may need to reprioritize a couple things for that day, depending on if you have insurance. But now there's no more scramble to get back to where you were. This is where the time starts to stack up and go faster. I am a geek. I put in plan day every day as A1 because it gives me something to check off and it starts my serotonin and dopamine, right? These pieces have to also kind of follow this really tough theory to stick with called eat that frog. So if you've got a bunch of things on your plate and you know that there's one thing that is going to be an absolute pain in your ass and you don't want to do it, push that to the top of your priority list. And that comes from a Benjamin Franklin quote that said, if the first thing you do is eat the biggest, ugliest frog you can in the morning, the rest of your day is going to be downhill. And what he's really saying is that that thing that you're putting off is actually still taking up huge components of your attention. You can feel it sitting on your shoulders. It's not letting you be present for the things you need to be present for. Put that thing towards the top. And then let the rest of the pieces fall where they need to fall. I also recommend that you bank checking your email and your voicemail. It could be 4 times a day, that's fine. But being in it all the time simply takes you away from being present. So we've talked through a lot of theories, right? There are some things that you are going to need. There is one tool that's digital that I found that is close to being great, and it's called the priority matrix. This gets you probably 50% of the way there. But here's what I want to impress on you. I'm going to give you the links to everything. When you write something by hand, it stores differently in your subconscious mind. You also don't get the same serotonin and dopamine release when you check something off online as you do when you check it off by hand. So if you are a digital person, I recommend that you try the written process by hand for 6 months so that you've trained your brain, and then you can switch to a digital tool. But make sure that it's part of how you process and that you're getting the rewards. The other piece, and this is what I still use today, and I have people that will wave their Franklin Covey at me from across a conference, is a written Franklin Covey system. There's a ton that you can pick from online. They don't have stores anymore. They sold off that division, which sucks because you used to be able to call and say, I'm Marie Hale's client. They'd be like, this is what you need. They don't do that anymore. But having one that is ring bound so that you can add and remove pages from it, and that is daily, is critical, because this little piece of paper that we were talking about actually fits into this holder, which goes from day to day to day, so that you can keep your eye on your big rocks from the week. And as you cross them off, you can move on to the next ones and fit them into the part of the day that will actually work for you. Okay. Ooh, I clicked on something totally different. So there's one story that I want to leave you with, because it was a gift that I got that I wasn't expecting after I had used Franklin Covey for a good 15 years of my life. So Jim and I, before we started the business, every year we would sit down and we would do our goal planning together, because it's easier to do your goal planning with a friend. It is. It'll let you think outside, be more creative, get feedback. And so, of course, when we started the business, we had our goals written down and we had them chunked down and we knew where we were going, right? Well, when he passed, and he passed so unexpectedly, there's this part of grief where you really just can't see. It's like walking around in jello or walking around in a fog. And at the end of that year, and he passed in February, I went back and I looked at the goals that we had set together. And I had actually accomplished every goal that we had dreamed about, according to the timeline that we had set for ourselves, even when I couldn't see. Because it was part of my subconscious. It was part of how I knew life was supposed to go. And so even when I couldn't do my Franklin Covey every week or every day because I was just emotionally blitzed, it was there to hold me up when I didn't know I needed to be held up. Guys, this is truly a life-changing practice. And yeah, it's going to take effort. Getting into the first part of it, getting those goals set up, you're probably going to get to maybe one a week and really think through it and break it down into small, actionable, time-bound steps. But making sure that this is part of how organically you break down the work in front of you, what it's going to train you to do is win over and over and over again. It is not a whipping post. It's a winning post. We need to see ourselves as winning, because if the only thing that we see are those goals that we wrote down at the beginning of the year and tossed in a drawer and didn't look at again until November, what happens? We look at them and we go, failure, 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 failure. If you had a book full of 300, 400, 500 wins that you know you accomplished, is failure even part of that conversation? So I just want to make sure you guys take away a few big things. One, where you start to buy back 4 hours a week is by being present and by having a vision of what needs to get done, so the things that don't need to be done get quickly identified and moved out of the way. Two, it's training your subconscious mind to be proactive and creative on your behalf without your effort. And three, it's about getting clarity with yourself as to what is truly important and making sure that all of those in your life, including you, are taken care of. So we will make sure that you guys we've got a PDF that is the daily planner that is free. The starter pack, there really is no free version of that. I've looked and looked, but it's pretty easy to get that role and that goal written out and then create those next steps. And then that weekly compass, knowing where you're going to get to your year on a weekly basis, is going to pull you through. And all of those things are outlined in the slides. And I've also put in there the links to the Franklin Covey store with exactly what you need to get, so that you don't get a system that is just there to be a place for you to take notes and carry around, because that's not going to help. So we do have a few minutes left. I'd like to open it up to questions. What resonated for you? What scared the living hell out of you? What would you like clarity on?
I guess a comment. I'm familiar with a lot of these tools, and so that's interesting, at least. It's like, oh, okay. So knowing is, I don't know, half the battle, maybe. One thing it's actually kind of relieving, because one thing I do, I think I'm actually doing the rocks fairly well, because I time block. And I think I prioritize fairly, even though if it's not like a list anybody else could make sense of, I think I have a sense of it. But then I notice things like my inbox pile, like right now, it's just overflowing and all over the place. And I'm like, well, that's what that is today. But this helped remind me and sort of settle me that that's okay, because it's less important. I could probably go clean that up, the next time I have, gotten through some of the more bigger priorities. And the other piece is, I feel like I actually, a little while ago, started just a daily written list, because I had, and then one of the things I was doing also was carrying things over, which was helping to train me of like really notice the things that I'm not getting done, or that I keep delaying, or things like that.
Yeah. And thanks, Snejana, for putting that link in there, but there's actually a different link. Franklin Covey sold their retail, and it really was stupid. So you've got to go to this site in order to get the planner products. It's dumb. Stacy, what about you?
So I put I work out twice a week. Like I do Pilates, and then I do strength training, and that's in my schedule, set times with trainers. So it's very rare that I have to reschedule those times. Obviously, if I have a relocation client, I have to work on their schedule. But those are pretty set times. And then my networking, group, set times. So it's in my calendar and class. So I have that time blocked. But obviously, there's other times that I have to be more flexible. So for me to say I'm going to do like my outreach to my former clients on this particular time, it's hard for me to do, because go ahead.
But that's exactly where this breaks it down, is because if your item A2 is outreach to past clients and you've got things that are coming up, you can take care of those things as they come up. And you've got a little dot next to outreach and you can come back to it.
No, right. But I've talked to other like coaches and they're like, you should do it first thing in the morning. Well, it doesn't work that way, right? I have to be flexible based on when it is, or like you mentioned, not checking emails or voicemails. Well, I typically don't do that if I'm out unless I'm negotiating a deal. And then I always explain I may be getting a call because it's an offer. So it's things like that. So I do try and do all of that kind of thing,
Well, where it really starts to get the shift is if on that same list, if you've got check email on there 4 times a day, then you've got check email on there 4 times a day, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? And it takes you from being reactionary to being purposeful and present.
Yeah.
Things start to get done a heck of a lot faster.
I did also I'm trying to put like no work on a given weekend. It was actually supposed to be this past weekend, but that went to, shit when I was sick for 2 days.
So if for those of you that typically work weekends, start with 24 hours of no work calls, no work conversations, just absolute break, and work your way up. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And it is a practice. It really is. You will get to the point where if you've left your Franklin Covey somewhere, you're just about to die because everything was in there and you knew where you were going. It's a compass. And it's going to take time. There's going to be weeks when you forget to do it. And then you look back and you're like, what did I even accomplish this week? And you truly won't know because you were just going through putting out fires. This takes the reactionary out and puts the presence of mind in. That's the biggest gift anybody ever wants from you, is to be present for the time that you've got allotted for them. Your tasks and your goals deserve that kind of attention too. So again, we're going to follow up with the emails. There are some free tools that are in there. If you need help with your goal chunking down, let's find some time, because not everybody is as geeky about mind maps as I am. But it can be, especially for those of you that are a little artistic, it can be a truly cathartic experience to let your mind freely wander around how you're going to create your life. And then we put it into a plan. And remember not to swallow the whole glass at once. Yes, you can grab the glass, flip it upside down and see what falls in your mouth, or you can take sips from the side. One of these methods is preferable. I'll let you choose. Thank you guys for taking the hour out with me today. I encourage you to, again, stay connected with each other. If you do get the Franklin Covey system and you want me to make sure that your order is right so you're not missing anything, let me know. It's typically about $80 the first year and then $40 every year after that. And there's some extra tips and tricks that I'll show you in there that only the Franklin Covey insiders know. But I love you guys. Thank you for showing up. And I can't wait to check back in with you in a month and see what you've implemented. We will also send a follow-up of the slideshow. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thanks.
Thank you.